Hey guys, it's Mike Monty, one half of Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. And we want to reach out to all the fans out there who have supported our show to say thank you. Thank you for making 2021 one of our best years. And one of our best years was because of Anchor. Anchor, the way that you can have your voice heard. You can be just like us. Record your own podcast. Use the Anchor tools to edit your podcast. Use it on a phone. Use it on your computer. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all with Anchor, they're totally free. So be just like Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're looking together for a great 2022. We've got huge guests coming on board. Oh, yeah. You probably wonder why Jimmy's not here right now. Well, he's prepping for one of the best interviews we're about to have, and we're going to surprise someone with. So hang aboard with us, and don't forget, be like us and use Anchor.
And then we got Dory Funk Jr. Last match, February 29th, 2020, still living. Most recently wrestled on February 29, 2020 for his own FC Bank promotion in Bellevue, Florida, teaming with the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner, to defeat the team of Blaine Rage and Jake Logan and Shane Chung. So we all know Dory Funk Jr., Dorrance Ernest Funk, professionally known, is an American retired professional wrestler, the son of Dory Funk and brother of Terry Funk. He was the promoter of Amarillo, Texas-based Western sports promotion. There goes a little bit of Dory there. He was born in Hammond, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
5 children. Ring names: Haas Funk, the Long Tail, Dory Funk Jr., the Texan, the Masked Outlaw. He was 6'2", 250 pounds, built from the Double Cross Ranch, trained by Dory Funk, Ricky Romero, and Pedro Morales.
Wow.
Debuted in 1963, retired in 2020. Funk held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship once. He is the second longest reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion of all time, holding it for 4 years. Only Lou Thesz held it longer. He held the WWC Universal Heavyweight Champion once and the CWA World Heavyweight Champion once. He is a 2009 WWE Hall of Fame inductee. He's working for All Japan Pro Wrestling and as a Pacific Wrestling Federation chairman, and runs the Funking Conservatory, a professional wrestling school overall in major professional wrestling promotions. He is a one-time world champion consisting of the NWA World Heavyweight Championships, which is widely recognized as a counterpart to the WWE Championship.
Long storied career there.
And then we got Frank Hinckley, who was, wrestled his last match at USWA event in Nashville, Tennessee, teaming with Brian Christopher in a loss to Frank Morrell and Coco Beware. He died a few months later. Frank Hinckley, he played the Spaceman, and he was from Albany, Kentucky. He also played Bozo Brown, Bozo Miller, the Great Bozo, Night Terror, El Diablo, and Frank Brown. He was 5'10", 243 pounds, built from outer space, and then debuted in 1942 and retired May 15th, 1993. Long career, Frank.
Yep.
And we got Jimmy Valiant, and who says it's still living as of then. February 8th, 2020 was his last match. Most recently wrestled on February 8th, 2020 for Wrestle Pro in Rahway, New Jersey, where he teamed with Buster Jackson to defeat the team of Colt Cabana and CPA.
Right.
Wow. Well, Jimmy Valiant, better known as Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man. James Harfo Fanning was born in Tullahoma, Tennessee. Ring name Charlie Brown, and Jimmy Valiant is 6'3", 251 pounds, built from New York City, out of town as Charlie Brown, trained by Vern Gagne, and debuted in 1964 to current. And then we got K.Y. Wakamatsu. let's see. He's still living. He was born January 1st, 1942. His last match was February 15, 2019. And he last wrestled on a show independently produced by Keiju Muto in Tokyo, Japan, where he teamed up with Great Kojika and Tiger Toguchi in a loss to the team of Heisei Ishingun and Akitoshi Saito, Mashi Ogo, and Shiro Koshiaka. Okay, I tried my hardest there. Next, we have Gypsy Joe, which his last match was January 7, 2011. Joe wrestled his last match at the Gypsy Joe retirement show held in Tullahoma, Tennessee by the Southern Wrestling Federation. Gypsy Joe was a Puerto Rican professional wrestler better known under the name Gypsy Joe, while he was Gilberto Melendez. While attaining much of his United States success in the Tennessee area, Melendez also gained a following in Japan. His career lasted 6 decades, and his highly physical brawling style and tough reputation made him an early pioneer of the hardcore wrestling scene. There's Gypsy Joe in 1975, birth name Gilberto Melendez. He was born in Puerto Rico. Died in Nashville, Tennessee. His ring names was Aztec Joe, Blue Inferno, El Grande Pistolero, Jean Madrid, Gypsy Joe, Jan Madrid, Inferno 1, and Baby Grandpa. He was 5'9", 224 pounds, built from Villaba, Puerto Rico. We trained by Pampiro Firpo.
Pampiro Firpo, the great Firpo, yeah.
1951, and retired in 2011.
Now, if you remember, he's a real tough guy, and testimony to that is New Jack tried beating him up for stiffing him. You know, why he didn't try to have some respect for the guy. But I don't know. They said he beat him up, but I watched the whole tape, and the guy's still standing. So after supposedly being beat up by New Jack, the guy was still standing. And he was 80 plus then.
Right. Tough guy.
Yeah.
So then moving on to Mel Mascaras, who is March 9th, 2019 was his last match. Wrestled Lucha Libre Acapulco in Acapulco, Mexico, teaming with Captain Atamato and Dragon Lee to defeat the team of La Bestia del Ring, Rey Bucanero, and Valentia. Mel Mascaras, of course, was a Mexican luchador. He is regarded as one of the greatest wrestlers in lucha libre tradition in Mexico, along with El Santo and the Blue Demon, and has been described as the first international superstar of lucha libre. Mascaras is considered one of the most influential wrestlers of all time for enhancing and popularizing the lucha libre style around the world, both in the ring as the star of 20 films. He is also an accomplished artist and cultural ambassador for his native country, and has appeared on three of its postage stamps, although he has never been unmasked and his true identity is generally kept a secret out of respect for the lucha libre traditions. His real name is known due to appearing in the credits of several films he has starred in. His ring name is Spanish for 1,000 masks. It's amazing. Born in San Luis Potosi, Mexico. He's a family wrestlers, Don Caras and Alberto Del Rio, El Hijo do Caras. I don't know how to pronounce some of these names.
Dos Caras, which is 2 something. And he had another brother, El Psicodelico, and he had a mask that had a
Hijo del Psicodelico, as well as his nephew. And then he was 5'11", 245, trained by Diablo Velasco and Jose Hermes. He debuted in 1963 and retired in 2019, and was included and inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2010, the WWE Hall of Fame in 2012. He is a member of one of Mexico's most prominent wrestling families. His brother Jose and Pablo respectively wrestle as Dos Caras and what you just mentioned. Jose's oldest son Alberto is a former WWE champion and currently wrestles under Alberto El Patron. Jose's younger son Guillermo Mo wrestles as El Hero del das Caras. Pablo's son Aaron is better known as you know his name. I can't pronounce it.
El Psicodelico? Where was it?
Yes, Junior.
Yes. Yep.
So, okay, and then we're moving on to Jackie Fargo. His last match was September 16, 2006. He wrestled in a tag team match with Jeff Justice and Officer Kenny McKenney to defeat Dr. Tom Pritchard, Bo James, and the Sheik of Araby for big-time wrestling in Granite Quarry, North Carolina. So Jackie Fargo was an American professional wrestler known as Jackie Fargo. He competed in the Southeastern Regional Promotions and the National Wrestling Alliance during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The mainstay in NWA Mid-America, later Continental Wrestling Association. He served as a mentor to Jerry the King Lawler and the Fabulous Ones. Amongst other wrestlers in Memphis area, he was known for his blonde hair and the Fargo strut mannerism, and held 45 tag team champions during his career with Don Fargo, Sonny Roughhouse Fargo, amongst others. His real name was Henry Fager. He was born in North Carolina, died in China Grove, North Carolina, of heart failure. He had 3 children. His ring names was Honey Boy Fargo, Jackie Fargo, and Wildman Fargo. He was 5'10", billed as 250. He debuted in 1950 and retired in 2006.
Yep. Famous. Very, very prolific in that, during that time period.
Frank Durso, last match, March 23rd, 2013, wrestled in a tag team with Sean Blanchard and Lou Martin to defeat Bobby O, Chris Cash, Shane Starr, and Justin Shane for the Keystone State Wrestling Alliance in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Bill Dundee wrestled his first match December 14, 2019, wrestled for Bobby Eaton at a Night of Appreciation event in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he teamed with George South, Bo James, and Stan Lee as they lost to Bobby Fulton, Brad Thomas, Ryan Dukey, and Shane Williams. Now, Bill Dundee is a retired Scottish-born Australian professional wrestler, better known as his stage name Bill Dundee. Is the father of Jamie Dundee and the father-in-law of wrestler Bobby Eaton. William Khrushchenks was born in Angus, Scotland, and Jamie Dundee is his son. His ring names were also William Dundee, Sir William Dundee, and Squire William. He was 5'7", 214 pounds. I don't think he was even that tall. And he's built from Australia, debuted in 1962, retired in 2019.
Wow.
Kenny J, last match, June 16, 2012. Last wrestled in an 11-person Royal Rumble style match where he entered last and won. Last, eliminating Eric Lockhart from the Rock and Roll Wrestling in North Dakota. Then we got Bushwhacker Luke, still living, still active. Most recently wrestled on February 12th, 2022 for Midwest All-Star Wrestling, defeating Coda Jacobs in Turtle Lake, Wisconsin.
That's
now,
like
Bushwhacker Luke, Bushwhacker Luke is a New Zealand professional wrestler, also best known for his appearance in the World Wrestling Federation under Bushwhacker Luke, where he teamed with Bushwhacker Bush as the Bushwhackers. He's also known for his appearance under Luke Williams for such promotion as NWA New Zealand, Stampede Wrestling, Pacific Northwest Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Southwest Championship Wrestling, and the Universal Wrestling Federation, where he teamed with Bush as the Kiwis and the Sheep Herders. Yes, Brian Wickens is from New Zealand. He was also known as Cousin Luke, Dudley, Gorgeous Teddy Williams, Luke Williams, Pretty Boy Floyd, and Sweet Williams. He was 6 foot tall, 242 pounds, and debuted in 1962 along with Butch. Luke held the championships, including the NWA Florida Tag Team Championships, Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championships, NWA North Pacific Heavyweight Championships, UWF Tag Team Championships. The duo were inducted into WWE Hall of Fame in 2015 and the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in the year 2020, and currently work with our friend Tommy Fierro and ISW W in New Jersey.
Yep.
So, and then we have El Matematico.
Yes. It's, his mask had numbers on it, so it means mathematics.
The last match was May 17, 2015. He wrestled his last match for FMLL teaming with Mano Negra and as the Jalisco, as they lost to the Blue Panther and Damien 666 and Negro Navarro in El Monte, California. Okay, and then we got Octavio John, I can't say his name. He wrestled last January 20th, 1977, wrestled his last match at the show in Guadalajara, Mexico, teaming with his grandson, Arturo Gona, and Bukura. I defeated Babe Sharon, Commando 1, and Luis Chivor. Luthez. His last match was December 26, 1990. The former undisputed world heavyweight champion last wrestled Masahiro Chono for the New Japan Pro Wrestling in Haramatsu, Japan. He lost to Chono. Luthez was an American professional wrestler. He was the 3-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion and held the title for a combined total of 10 years, 3 months, and 9 days. 3,749 days longer than anyone else in the history of professional wrestling, considered to be one of the last true shooters in professional wrestling, and described as a quintessential athlete, a polished warrior who could break any man in two if pushed the wrong way. Thez is widely regarded as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time and the single greatest wrestling world champion in history, and probably last globally accepted world champion. In Japan, Thez was known as the god of wrestling and was known as Tetsunij, which means Iron Man, in respect for his speed, conditioning, and expertise in catch wrestling along Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson. Thez later helped train Japanese wrestlers and mixed martial artists in catch wrestling. He was born in Michigan. He died in Orlando. He had 3 children. He was 6'2", 225 pounds, from St. Louis, Missouri, trained by Ed Santel, Ed Lewis, George Tragos, Ray Steele. He debuted in 1932 and retired in the year 2000. He had a lot of military service, allegiance in the United States, service branch, United States Army, years of service 44 to 46, and he battled in World War II. Successful amateur wrestler in his youth and ardent supporter of sports in his later years, he helped to establish, in addition to the beginning of the members of the inaugural class, the Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, which honors successful professional wrestlers with a strong amateur wrestling background, and is a charter member of several other Hall of Fames, including WCW, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, Professional Wrestling, and WWE's Legacy Wing.
Yeah, and his nickname for him was Hunky, because he was a big hunk. You know, he was a good-looking guy when he was younger. Ladies were always, looking up at him.
Right. And then we got Claude Rocca, last wrestled July 5th, 2019 at ABC Wrestling, teaming with Christophe Casseg, losing to Brutal Butcher, teaming that was in France. We got Chick Donovan, last wrestled April 24th, 2021, most recently wrestled for KLT Promotions in Rome, Georgia, teaming with Mike Jackson against Bryce Cannon and Cornelius Pepperbottom in a match that ended in a no contest. Chick Donovan.
Golden Boy.
Yeah, semi-retired, worked for Georgia Championship Wrestling and a short time with World Championship Wrestling. Charles Donovan Kelly, from Georgia, known as Chick Donovan, debuted in 1977 and is obviously still current. Next, we have the Great Gama. 1952 was his last match. Sources say that Gama received active as a wrestler until 1952. The Great Gama, commonly known as Rustam E. Hind, and by the ring name, the Great Gama, was an Indian wrestler and strongman in the early 20th century. He was undefeated wrestling champion of the world. Look at this dude.
Remember, I said the thing that they held?
Yes,
That's
yes.
right
He's
there.
the butt guy. He was born in British India and died in Pakistan. His ring name, yeah. He's only 5'8" and 250 pounds. He looks a lot bigger than that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there's him. Then Johnny Saint, last match was 2015, June 13th, wrestled Italian Championship Wrestling in a tag team match with Manuel Majodi to defeat Mr. Excellent Psycho Mike. Then we got Kim Duck, last match wrestled for NPH Japan Pro Wrestling 70th anniversary show in Tokyo, where he participated in a battle royal and won by Masakai Mokazuki. Let's see. And then we got Jose Gonzalez. October 2019 was his last match, wrestled against Invader One for World Wrestling League in Puerto Rico, teaming with El Bronco as they challenged the champions, Lightning and Thunder, for the WWL World Tag Team Champions. The match ended in a no contest. And we got Adrian Street. Last wrestled June 2014, wrestled his last match for NWA in Birmingham, Alabama. Adrian Street, retired Welsh professional wrestler, also an author with his flamboyant, androgynous wrestling persona brought to prominence in 1970s and 1980s. Street was often accompanied by his longtime manager and wife, Miss Linda. The two were primarily heels. And he's from Wales, UK, also known as Hell's Angel #1, Kid Tarzan Jonathan, and the Nature Boy. 5'7", 235 pounds, built from the Royal Forest of Dean, trained by Chick Osman and Mike Dimitri, debuted in '57 and retired in 2014.
Wow.
Then we got Estrella Blanca. Wrestled his last match on a AAA show in a loss in El Paso in San Pedro, Chucholo, Mexico in April 2011. Then we got Terry Funk, September 23rd, 2017, last wrestled for Big Time Wrestling in Spartan, South Carolina, where he teamed with the Rock and Roll Express as they defeated Doug Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, and Brian Christopher. Terry Funk. Mr. Wrestling 2. Last match was October 13, 2007. Last wrestled for Hawaii Championship Wrestling as he teamed with Steve Corino and won the HCW Kekoluki Heritage Tag Team Championship. We got George Julio, wrestled last April 6, 2019 for New Age Wrestling in Australia, defeating Bo Bowman. Mike Jackson, still active, most recently wrestled February 5th, 2022 at KLT Promotions in Rome, Georgia, where he lost to Skrilla the Great. Let's see. Yoshaki Fujiwara, still living, still active, most recently wrestled on October 16, 2021 for All Japan Pro Wrestling in Tokyo, Japan, where he teamed with Maso Inoue Katsuro and Devil, defeating Great Kajuki and Fuji, Chikara and Sushi.
Now, Fujiwara, he's the originator of the Fujiwara armbar.
Yes. John Cena Jr. last match November 18th, 2016, the biological father of John Cena. He wrestled his last match defeating Chad Epic at House of Bricks Pro Wrestling in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
I didn't know he was a wrestler.
No, I didn't know that either.
Wow.
And I'm disappointed they don't have more information on him. Then we got Woody Farmer, who wrestled his last match April 12, 2008, wrestled for Bay Wrestling Federation in Alameda, California, teaming with his son, Shane Cody, and his grandson, Riot, in a 6-man tag team match. Then we got El Satanico, who is still active, most recently wrestled January 4th, 2022 for CMLL in Guadalajara, Mexico, where he teamed with Malefico and Zandokin Jr., losing to Blue Panther and Roja in Chikaro. I don't know that name. I'm sorry. Then Jerry Lawler, still active, most recently wrestled February 5th, 2022 for Tennessee Championship Wrestling with Wolfie D defeating Doug Gilbert and Moondog Rover in Jackson, Tennessee. Then we got Mitsu Mamota, living. October 24, 2020 was his last match. Wrestled for All Japan Pro Wrestling, raising an arm memorial series in Tokyo, Japan, where he wrestled team with Omari and Fuchi, Black Menso and Honda defeating Yoshi and Tatsu, Akoda, Chikara, and Ishikiki in a 10-man tag team match. That was really hard for me. And then we got the Sheik, whose last match was in 1998, and he wrestled his last match in Japan. Bill Riley, whose last known match was took place in 1968. And then we got Gustav Franztenski, and he wrestled his last match April 6, 1957. It is said that Gustav wrestled until the age of 72. Warren Blackwinkle wrestled March 25th, 1986 was his last, 1983 was his last match. It is said Warren Bockwinkel, father of Nick Bockwinkel, wrestled until the age of 72.
Wow.
Jimmy Snuka, his last match was May 15, 2015. His last match was at an ECPW event where he teamed up with Frankie Flo to defeat the team of Andrew Anderson and Jason Knight.
Wow.
Then we got Ron Fuller, who it says still living. Last match was January 25th, 2020. Last wrestled on January 25th, 2020 for Continental Championship Wrestling in Dothan, Alabama, teaming with Jimmy Golden to defeat the Dirty Blondes, Leo, Brian, and Mike Patrick. Then we got the Ultraman, who's still living. Last match in 2019, May. Teaming with El Solar, Super Astro, as they defeated Black Terry, Negro Navarro, and Mano Negra at an event in Culitilatan, Mexico. Then we got Masanobu Kurisu. I don't know. Kurisu.
I can't help you. I can't see.
Yeah, I know. It's the last match, September 2018. His last match was with Okamura and Felino as they defeated Negra and Solar 1, Villano 4 or 5 at the Expo event in Mexico. And then we have Mae Weston. Last match, June of 1994. She wrestled her last match with Stormy Apple as they lost to Josie Navarro and Margaret Garcia at a Ladies International Wrestling Association in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then we got Joe Pesic, who wrestled his last match June 25th, 1965, defeating Frankie Ribera at Pacific. It's jumbled. I can't even see that. And then we got Afa Inouye, still living, wrestled his last match March 1st, 2014. And Afa is Samu and his grandson, Lance Inouye. They defeated Homicide, AC Anderson, Eric Cobain, Havoc, and Mustafa Aziz in a 10-man tag team match for the promotion of World Extreme Wrestling in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Bob Orton Jr. last match. He's still active. Most recently wrestled for Pro Wrestling Epic on January 15, 2022, where he teamed with Jackson King and TS Aggressor, defeating Marty Starr, Sparrow, and Captain Midnight in Des Moines, Iowa. Then we got Ivan Koloff. Last match was November 16, 2013. He wrestled his last match as he lost to Bob Armstrong at Superstars of Wrestling #1 in Rome, Georgia.
So you mean tell me that he, what's his name, couldn't put him over on his last match?
Yeah, you would think, right?
I mean, come on.
And then we got Stu Hart, who his last match was July 25th, 1986. He wrestled his last match in a tag team match with his son Keith, defeating the Honky Tonk Man Wayne Ferris and Junior Foley at a Stampede Wrestling in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Then we got Jacques Matte. He's still living. Last match was September 15th, 2019. Wrestled his last match at the Verdugo Mania 3rd anniversary show in Tonala, Jalisco, Mexico, teaming with Mate Jr., Rafaga, and Raymond in a loss to the team of Americo Rocca, Ramirez, and Starman. I'm so bad with these names, but they could read them on the screen. The next one is Katsuji Ayudia. His last match was in August of 2016. He wrestled his last match for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling in Tokyo, Japan, defeating Hasegawa and the Shooter in the MMA three-way match. Nikolai Volkov. His last match was May 5th, 2018, wrestling for Battleground Championship Wrestling in Feasterville, Pennsylvania, teaming with Jim Duggan to defeat the team of Michelle Mercenary and Nikki Benz.
Wow.
Benz, who's one of my boys from TCW, Nick Burke.
Yep, I love Nikki.
And then we got Baron Michel Leone, who last wrestled August 14th, 1979. His last match, he defeated Rat Ferrero at a wrestling event in Montreal, Canada. And then we got the Great Kabuki, who is still living and wrestled his last match September 30th, 2018. His last match at a show that was independently produced by Masakutsu Funaki in Osaka, Japan, teaming with Giant Small Baba, Small Antonio Noki, and Teruku Kagawa to defeat the team of Hiro Dai Circus Yasuda and Mitsukuni Daiso Wakashoyo and Yamaishi Meijin in an 8-person tag team match. I was in Japan for a while. You'd think I would like this with my tongue, but it just doesn't. So the Great Kabuki still at it. So now we're moving on to our second hour of the oldest living wrestlers here, and still oldest living wrestlers, the Great Kojika, as still wrestles for Najita Pro Wrestling and is a co-promoter for Big Japan Pro Wrestling. Bushwhacker Luke still wrestles independent shows as of February 2022, and Fujiwara still wrestles in Japan as of October 2021. El Satanico still wrestles for Lucha Libre as of 2022. Wow. Jerry Lawler still wrestles for VCA Wrestling and USA Championship Wrestling in Tennessee. Mike Jackson still wrestles for independent shows as of 2022 at 72 years old.
Excuse me.
Bob Orton Jr. Still wrestles independent shows at 71 years old as of 2020. Kanik is still wrestles as of 21 at 69 years old. Black Terry, 69 years old, wrestles in Mexico, 2022 currently. Fruza Guerrera still wrestles in Mexico as of December 2021 at 68 years old. Ricky Knight, 68 years old, still wrestles in England as of 2022.
That is, Ricky Knight is Paige's father.
Okay. Tatsumi Fujinami, 68 years old, wrestles in Japan as of 2022. Still. Let's see. Masanubi Fuchi, 68 years old, wrestles for All Japan Pro Wrestling. Still. 2022. Rocky Santana, 66 years old, wrestles for in Mexico as of 2022. Johnny Kidd, 66 years old, wrestles for in England. El Solar, wrestles for Mexico as of November 2021. Ricky Morton, 65, wrestles independent shows. Negro Navarro wrestles still for Mexico. Atsushi Onita, 64 years old, still wrestles for Japan, 2022. And Mascara and No 2000, 63 years old, wrestles for and in Mexico as of November 2021. So big list there on.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back on a few of these names, actually, because
Tatsumi Fujinami was the first junior heavyweight champion for the WWF.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff here was highlighted that didn't actually get to go over too much that I wanted to. So let's just see. I think I'll start at my favorite guy here, Terry Funk. Let's go back to Terry Funk a bit. Is a retired professional wrestler. Funk is also known for the longevity of his career, which spanned more than 50 years and included multiple short-lived retirements and influential hardcore styles he pioneered in later parts of his career. And there goes Terry, birth name Terrence Funk, from Hammond, Indiana, alma mater, West Texas State University. He has 2 children, and he is the brother of Dory Funk Jr. Dory Funk is his father. He wrestled under the Black Baron, Chainsaw Charlie, Dr. Knows It All, Terry Funk, and the Texan. He was billed as 6'1", 247 from Amarillo, Texas, trained by Dory Funk. He debuted in 1965, retired in 2017, one of his retirements.
Yeah.
Over the course of his career, Funk has wrestled for numerous major promotions, amongst them All Japan Pro Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling, the International Wrestling Association of Japan, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, and the United States Wrestling Association, World Championship Wrestling, the World Wrestling Federation, and multiple National Wrestling Alliance territories, including Big Time Wrestling, Championship Wrestling from Florida, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and Stampede Wrestling. He was the promoter of Amarillo-based Western States Sports Promotion. Championships held by Funk include ECW World Heavyweight Champion, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion, WWF World Tag Team Champions, and ECW Television Champion. He headlined ECW's premier annual pay-per-view event, November to Remember, 3 times. And Funk has been inducted into multiple Hall of Fames, amongst them WWE, WCW, NWA, and Hardcore Hall of Fame. So Terry Funk, wanted to go back on some stuff about Terry Funk because I think that,
Yeah, I mean, you can never say enough about Terry.
Absolutely not. And then we get to Mr. Wrestling 2. A better known ring name by Mr. Wrestling 2, John Francis Walker was an American professional wrestler. He's best known for his appearances with Championship Wrestling for Florida and Georgia Championship Wrestling in the 1970s and early 80s. He was born in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. He died in Honolulu, Hawaii. He was known as the Grappler, Johnny Walker, Mr. Wrestling, and Mr. Wrestling 2. He was 6 foot tall, billed as 247 pounds, from Atlanta, Georgia, trained by Tony Morelli and Pat O'Connor, debuted in 1955, and retired in 2007.
He was hot as a firecracker, boy. They love Mr. Wrestling too.
So, and then we got Woody Farmer. He was an American professional wrestler and actor from Virginia. He died in California. He was 6'1", and he was trained by Ray Stevens.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't even have a picture of him here.
Yeah, Woody Farmer trained tons of people. He was one of those main guys back in the day that had camps. They didn't call them schools. when we were talking about maybe there was 10 trainers in the country, he was one of those.
Right. Then we got Jerry Lawler, Jerry O'Neill Lawler, better known as Jerry the King Lawler, is an American color commentator and professional wrestler. He is currently signed to WWE, where he performs as on the commentary team. So, born in Memphis, Tennessee, had 3 children, including Kevin Lawler and Brian Christopher. Not sure about the other one. Relatives, the Honky Tonk Man is his cousin. And Jerry Lawler, 6 foot tall, 243 pounds, built from Memphis, Tennessee, trained by Jackie Fargo, debuted in 1970. Prior to joining WWE in 1992, then known as World Wrestling Federation, he wrestled in numerous territories, winning many championships, including multiple World Heavyweight championships throughout his career. Lawler is one-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion and 3-time WCWA World Heavyweight Champion, making him a 4-time World Champion in AWA and WCWA. He unified the titles by defeating Kerry Von Erich at Super Clash 3, forming the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship, a championship which he held 28 times. He's also known for his feud with comedian Andy Kaufman, and he portrayed himself in the 1999 film Man on the Moon. Lawler has held more recognized championships than any other wrestler in the history of professional wrestling. Though he has never won any championships in WWE, having wrestled sporadically whilst primarily providing color commentary. Since joining the company in 2007, Lawler was inducted into WWE's Wrestling Hall of Fame.
I hate to say this, but I never got it. I mean, how? Of course, you can hold as many titles as more than anybody else because you're the booker, you own the company. So
right, you're going to say what goes, and then
to be disrespectful. But but I do find it funny. I'll get off of that tangent. But his brother-in-law is a Honky Tonk Man, so they both had an Elvis gimmick. The King, right? That's an Elvis gimmick with all the outfits, and same thing with Honky Tonk Man.
Very similar.
Yep.
Then we move on to Mitsu Mamota, who was a Japanese professional wrestler and executive known for his work in the Japanese promotions All Japan Pro Wrestling and later in Pro Wrestling Noah. He is the son of Riki Dozen, born in Tokyo, Japan. He is 5'8", 220 pounds, and trained by Shohei Baba. He debuted in 1970.
Yeah, Riki Dozen was... like the Bruno Sammartino of Japan. And I think there was a broadcast, was one of the first of its kind via satellite or some early technology that they had. So he's, comes to royalty. Riki Dozen was that in Japan for sure.
And then we got the Sheik, Edward George Farrat, American professional wrestler, better known as the Sheik. Often called the original Sheik, to distinguish himself from the Iron Sheik, who debuted in 1972. Farrat is credited as one of the originators of hardcore wrestling style. He was also the promoter of Big Time Wrestling and the uncle of ECW wrestler Sabu. Farrat promoted his shows at Cabo Hall in Detroit and was the booker for Frank Tunney's shows at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto from 1971 to 1977. He was born in Lansing, Michigan. He died in Williamstown, Michigan, of heart failure. And let's see, his ring names were the Sheik of Arabi, and the original Sheik. He was 5'11", 250 pounds from the Syrian desert, debuted in 1949 and retired in 1998. So then we got Billy Riley, who was an English practitioner and teacher of catch wrestling. As a trainer in the sport, he taught some of the leading post-war World II figures in catch wrestling, and his training in Snake Pit in Wigman, Lancashire, England. So let's see. He debuted in the 1920s and wrestled until 1968.
Yeah, that was that Snake Pit had. There was a couple people that were involved in that and trained some of the younger guys how to shoot. Really.
Then we got Gustav Franztenski, a Czech strongman, Greco-Roman wrestler, and professional wrestler who competed in the first half of the 20th century. During his career, he won almost 10,000 fights. The first one when he was just 19 years old, and the last one when he was 72. He's considered the strongest Czech and legendary symbol of strength for many Czechs. Look at this guy right here.
Yeah. Wow.
He was born in Austria-Hungary. He died in Czechoslovakia, and his occupation was a strongman wrestler. That's the way he lived his life. Then we move on to Warren Bockwinkel, often misspelled Bockwinkel. I don't know. Let's see. He was from St. Louis, Missouri. Children, Nick Bockwinkel. So this is Nick Bockwinkel's father.
Yep.
220 pounds, from St. Louis, Missouri, debuted in 1934 and retired in 1957. And we move on to Jimmy Snuka, James Rahr Snuka. Wiley Smith was a Fijian professional wrestler, better known as Jimmy Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He was born in Suvu, Fiji. He died in Coral Springs, Florida. He had 4 children. His ring names were Jimmy Snuka, Jimmy Kaulawa, Lonnie Kaloa, Tammy Snuka. Wow, the Superfly, Big Snuka, and Great Snuka. Billed as 5'10", 235 from the Fiji Islands and trained by Danny Hodge, debuted in 1968, retired 2015. Snuka wrestled several promotions from 1970s to 2010s. He was best known for his time in the World Wrestling Federation in the 1980s and was credited with introducing high-flying style wrestling to the WWF. He was inducted into the WWF Hall of Fame in 1996. Snuka was inaugural ECW heavyweight champion, a title held twice in Eastern Championship Wrestling and then later in Extreme Championship Wrestling. His children, Sim Snuka and Tamina Snuka, are both professional wrestlers. Snuka was indicted and arrested in 2015 on the third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter charges in relation to the May 1983 death of his girlfriend, Nancy Argento. Snuka pleaded not guilty, but ultimately found unfit to stand trial in 2016 due to being diagnosed with dementia. At his health declined. The charges were dismissed on January 2017, and Snuka died 12 days later at the age of 73.
Yeah, and I can corroborate the dementia because well before that trial, he had been down to one of my schools probably in 2008. So I was wondering why he didn't give me like a warm, welcome. And then like about an hour and a half into his visit, he goes, "Oh," like it hit him. He goes, "Oh."
He remembered who you were.
Yeah. You. I said, "Yeah."
Right. And he couldn't remember names, but he definitely did remember faces. Poor Jimmy.
Oh, he
okay.
said, "Tell me it's you, brother."
Oh, and tell me who you are is what he was trying to say. And then we got Ron Fuller, born Ron Welsh, better known as Ron Fuller and the Tennessee Stud. He's the elder brother of Robert Fuller, Colonel Robert Parker. Ron and his brother co-owned Continental Championship Wrestling for quite a time. He was born in Tennessee. His ring names were Ron Welch and the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller. He was 6'9".
Wow.
Huge guy, 260 pounds, both from Knoxville, Tennessee. He debuted in 72 and retired in 1988. And this Ultraman, we got Milo Ventura Chavez, a Mexican professional wrestler, best known as the Ultraman. His father it was the Ultraman Jr., but is not related to the first wrestler to use that name, who is not known as Starman. They got a lot of words thrown around. He originally used the name El Domenico, which he made his debut in 1964 and later worked under the name Milo Ventura from 1968 to 1975. Let's see. He was born in Mexico. His ring names were Milo Ventura, Ultra Boy, Ultraman. He was 5'9", 196 pounds. Trained by Chico Hernandez and Alejandro de Alba. Debuted in 1964, retired in 2019.
Wow.
While he unmasked in Mexico in 1987, he continued to wrestle under a mask in Japan, where he was very popular due to the character based on Ultraman television character. Chavez, El Solar, and Super Astro formed a trio as Los Cadets del Espacio.
Cadets of Space. Space
The
Cadets.
Space Cadets, right. Yeah, that's pretty good, Ultraman. So let's see what we could read. John Pesic was, let's see, professional wrestler and greyhound racing dog breeder named the Nebraska Tigerman for his ferocity, aggression, and cat-like dexterity. Olympic freestyle wrestling gold medalists Robin Reed and Russell Viss both regarded Pesic as the greatest wrestler they've ever met. Wow.
I think he had a brother too, Jack Pesic.
Well, he was born February 21st, 1894 in Ravenna, Nebraska. He died in Nebraska at the age of 84 in 1978. He had 7 children. Ring name John Pesic. Build is 6 foot 185, and he debuted in 1914 and retired in 1965. It's a long career.
Yes.
Very long career. And then we got Afa Inouye. Afa Amituna Arthur Inouye. I might have gotten that wrong. It's a Samoan professional wrestler and wrestling manager. Since retiring, he has operated World Extreme Wrestling Promotion and trained wrestlers at the Wild Samoan Training Center. He was born in the Western Territory Trust Territory, Western Samoa, and he has 7 children of the Inouye family. He's 6'2", 326 pounds from the Isle of Samoa. He was trained by Kurt Von Steger, Peter Maivia, and Rocky Johnson. Debuted in 1971 and retired in 1995.
Wow.
And then we can't miss Bob Orton Jr. Born as Robert Keith Orton Jr., better known as Cowboy Bob Orton, is an American semi-retired professional wrestler. He's the son of Bob Orton Sr., the brother of professional wrestler Barry Orton, and the father of professional wrestler Randy Orton. He is best known for his time in WWF and WWE, and he had also wrestled for several promotions in the United States, Japan, and several other countries. Robert Keith Orton Jr. from Kansas City, Missouri, had 3 children, including Randy, Bobby, Barry, sons and brothers. Ring names: Bob Orton, the Invader, Young Mr. Wrestling. He was 6'1", 242, built from Kansas City and also St. Louis. He was trained by Hiro Matsuda, Eddie Graham, and Jack Briscoe. He debuted in 1972 and still hanging about.
Yeah. Wow, look, do you believe this? We're at the two-hour mark.
Yes, we're into our second hour of wrestlers that are the longest surviving and still alive. So episode 2, still going. Next, we have Ivan Koloff, who was born Oriole Donald Paris in 1942. He died in 2017. He was a Canadian professional wrestler, best known as the 3rd wrestler to hold the WWF Championship. He was known as the Russian Bear. Ivan Koloff. Oriole Donald Paris was from Montreal, Canada. He died in North Carolina. He was known, his ring names were Ivan Koloff, Jim Paris, Orwell Paris, and Red McNutley. McNutley. An Irish.
Yeah.
6'1", 298 pounds, from Moscow, Russia, trained by Jack Wentworth and Dan Koloff. He debuted in 1961 and retired in 2013. Uncle Ivan.
Good guy, yeah.
And then we got Stu Hart. Stuart Edward Hart, born May 3rd, 1915, was a Canadian professional wrestler, wrestling booker, promoter, coach, trainer, football player, amateur wrestler, and sailor. Guy with a lot of hats.
Yeah.
He is best known for founding and handling Stampede Wrestling, a professional wrestling promotion based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, teaching many individuals as its associated wrestling school, the Dungeon, and establishing a professional wrestling dynasty consisting of his relatives and close trainees. As the patriarch of the Hart wrestling family, Hart is the ancestor of many wrestlers, most notably being the father of Bret and Owen Hart, as well as the grandfather of Natalia Neidhart, Teddy Hart, and David Hart Smith. There goes a shot of Stu there.
Yeah.
Approximately, he was 18 in that picture.
Wow.
With an amateur wrestling belt. Stuart Edward Hart was born in Canada. He died of a stroke. He had 12 children, including Smith Hart, Bruce Hart, Keith Hart, Wayne Hart, Dean Hart, Bret Hart, Ross Hart, Diana Hart, and Owen Hart. The Hart family, Donald Stewart, grandfather, and Harry Smith was a father-in-law. The ring name was Stu Hart. He was 5'11", 230 pounds, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He was trained by Jack Taylor and Toots Mont. He debuted in 1943 and retired in 1986. He had a background in the military service. He was buried in Edenbrook Memorial Gardens. He had an allegiance with Canada. His service branch was a Royal Canadian Navy, and a year's service was from 1942 to 1946 in World War II. Hart was born to a poor Saskatchewan family, but became a successful amateur wrestler during the 1930s and early 40s, holding many national championships, as well as engaging in many other sports. He began wrestling for a show in 1943 with the Royal Canadian Navy while serving in World War II, as he could not go to 1940 Summer Olympics due to that war. After leaving the service, he traveled to American and debuted professionally in the New York territory for wrestling in 1946. Hart was considered very handsome and a good-looking in-ring performer, focusing on submission-like and technical style of wrestling. But despite this being popular in general, he was not given a major spotlight by the writers, and soon after marrying Helen Smith, whom he met in New York City, he created his own promotion in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which would be known as Stampede Wrestling, and took over the surrounding territories, which covered most of Western Canada and the United States of Montana. The territory would go on to become known as the Stampede Territory. Thenceforth, in 1942, Stu and Helen moved to Great Falls, Montana. Hart's promotion featured a large variety of outside stars from the wrestling industry, as well as homegrown talents from whom he booked storylines. Beginning from the 1950s, Hart helped train a large number of people from his company and gained a reputation as one of the best teachers in wrestling business. In October 1941, Stu and Helen moved to Calgary, Alberta, in what would become the famous Hart House. So Stu Hart, long history of getting people in the door.
That's for sure.
Wrestling and whatnot. Who else do we have here? Oh, wow. We got Bob Orton. Okay. Kanek. I don't know who that was.
Kanek, El Kanek, yeah. Very famous master.
Felipe Estrada. Okay. Known as El Kanek, or simply Kanek, is a Mexican luchador or masked professional wrestler. Best known for 20 years, he worked for Universal Wrestling Association, where he held the UWA World Heavyweight Championship for a total of 15 times. As the major heavyweight working for the Universal Wrestling Association promotion, he became one of the luchador's biggest attractions during the 1980s, especially through his high-profile matches against non-Mexicans that sold out numerous shows and led to the UWA using the same formula as the Canic versus the Foreigner for over a decade. He made his debut in 1972 as El Universalitario. I can't say it. At the age of 18, and would later work under the same name as Principal Azul, Spanish for the Blue Prince. In 1973, he adopted the ring name El Canac, and inspired by Mayan Indian leader Canac, that he has used ever since. While he worked in Mexico for the majority of his career, he also made several frequent tours to Japan, and he has worked in the United States as well as Europe.
Oh, yeah, big name.
Born in Mexico. I can't pronounce his ring names, but they're up there, so you can read them. As well as the names I'm reading wrong, you can read them. He was billed as 6 foot tall, 243 pounds, and trained by El Chacala, Felipe Ham Lee, Indio Aztec, Mesiti, and El Remington 1. He debuted in 1972.
Yep, big name.
On at all times. Then we got Black Terry. Black Terry is a Mexican luchador, better known by his ring name, Black Terry. Esteban Mares, I'm bad with these names. Wrestling since 1973, he was once part of a group called Los Tamaros alongside of Jose Luis Feliciano and Shu El Guerrero. He had previously worked under a masked character, Guerrero Maya, with the Maya Warrior, where he formed a group called, the Warriors of the Future with a masked Feliciano and Damian El Guerrero. He is the father of wrestler Guerrero Maya Jr., although the relationship is not officially recognized due to Guerrero Maya Jr. being a masked wrestler. Black Terry was born in Mexico. He was 5'5.5" and 176 pounds, trained by Bobby Fosse, Luis Canales, and Chato Quesada. He debuted in 1973. So let's see. Then we got Ricky Knight, whose name was Patrick Frary, is an English professional wrestler and promoter, owner, and former professional wrestler better known as Rowdy Ricky Knight, and the owner of World Association of Wrestling promotion in Norwich.
Paige's dad.
Yes, children, Paige, Roy Knight, and Zach Zodiac. He's billed from Norwich, England, trained by Jimmy Ocean, and debuted in 1978. So, Ricky Knight. All right. I'm not going to kill myself with the Japanese ones. Johnny Kidd, Johnny Lowing is a retired British professional wrestler, best known as Johnny the Kid, and worked for what was known as the golden era of British wrestling. He's from England. He was 5'9" and 225 pounds, trained by Ken Joyce, Ampthill Amateur Wrestling Club. He debuted in 1978 versus Tony Scarlo in Salisbury, Wiltshire. All right. El Solar is a luchador, masked professional wrestler who's been working in Mexico since 1975. His real name is not a matter of public record, as is often with the case of wrestlers in Mexico, where their private lives are kept a secret from the fans. His brother of him works as El Solar too, and his son of him has been wrestling as El Hero del Solar since 2008. So that's a shot of them. He was 5'8", 196 pounds, trained by Tuno Cruz, Los Calaveras at number 1 and 2. And he debuted in 1975, the year of my birthday.
That was some very interesting stuff. It looks like it's almost time to take it home, doesn't it?
Yeah, just a few more minutes here.
Okay.
Last we got Ricky Morton. Richard Wendell Morton is an American professional wrestler currently performing in the independent circuit. He is current ECW television. No, he's not. After pinning Mac Cardona. All right, this is kind of old. Morton has performed with the Rock and Roll Express and described as a consummate babyface tag team. Morton has wrestled for a multiple amount of promotions in the United States, including Continental Wrestling Federation, Mid-South Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions World Championship Wrestling, Smoky Mountain World Wrestling Federation, Extreme Championship Wrestling, as well as Japanese promotions, All Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Wrestle Associate R. Let's see. He has a school. He has 7 children.
Wow.
Paul Morton was his father, the referee from USWA. Todd Morton is his cousin. I think Kid Cash is one of his children, I believe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Richard Morton, Ricky Morton, 5'11", 228. Built from the volunteer state of Tennessee, trained by Paul Morton and Ken Lucas, debuted in 1977, held dozens of championships throughout his career, NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion, the Tag Team Champion, USA Unified, USWA Tag Team, WCW World Six-Man Tag Team. He's been included in the NWA Hall of Fame, Wrestling Observer, Newsletter Hall of Fame, WWE Hall of Fame. His skill of driving audiences into sympathetic frenzies by convincing selling pain gave rise to expressions playing the Ricky Morton. So,
a funny side note, you might want to check these out. If you look at some of the old promos and interviews they did, you could tell that he was the one that set the tone or choreographed what they were going to say, because when Robert Gibson is doing his part, Ricky Morton, you can see his mouth mimicking the words as Ricky Morton's saying it. If you look really close, you see him.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, we got a few more here. Negro Navarro, let's see, he was a Mexican professional wrestler in the independent circuit, made regular appearances in International Wrestling Revolution Group. He teams with his sons, Trauma 1 and Trauma 2, and he's popularized trios matches in Mexico. And let's see. Yeah, he was 5'9", 198, trained by Florentino Martinez, and debuted June 12th, 1975.
Wow.
These are guys still working. And Onita, of course, is a Japanese actor, politician, and semi-retired professional wrestler. He's best known for his work in frontier martial arts wrestling and is credited with introducing Japan to the deathmatch style of professional wrestling. There goes Onita, just there in August of 2020. He's from Japan, known as Mr. Onita, Atsushi Onita, and the Great Nita. He's 5'11" and 218 pounds, trained by Masao Koma, the Giant Baba, Dick Beyer, and Terry Funk.
Dick Beyer. You know who Dick Beyer is?
Dick Beyer, sorry. He debuted April 14th, 1974. Wow. He founded FMW in 1989 to defeat Masari, under his own rules, and made it a full-fledged organization. After his deathmatch style became popular with Japanese fans, he was the company's top superstar, wrestling at sold-out events with large crowds, making a hugely successful company and earning lots of money. Onita sold the company to Shoshires Ari and retired in 1995 to pursue an acting career, which was unsuccessful, forcing him to return as a wrestler in 1996. He led stables Zen and Team Zero after his comeback and departed the company in 1998 as he was so upset at the position in his company. He held the FMW Brass Knuckles Heavyweight Championship a recorded 7 times and headlined the first 6 editions of the company's premier events anniversary shows from 1989 to 1995.
Yeah. Wow. What a career. And Dick Baer is the intelligent, sensational destroyer. He was a masked American guy, and he's huge in Japan. They just loved him. The intelligent, sensational destroyer. That's Dick Baer.
Absolutely. So this was a long episode that, of course, we had to break into 2 parts, and just a little history on, the popular wrestlers of the time, going way back. And hopefully you got to learn a lot about the legends of professional wrestling, going back in a time where most people don't rewind back that far. Myself and the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo, we rewind back that far. And this is what we're here for on Wrestling Rewind, to educate you on the history of professional wrestling, rewinding as far back as the very beginning in whatever we can find. So we hope that you have been educated this evening on the list of professional wrestlers still alive, still active, and what their roles were in the history of professional wrestling. I hope you've also enjoyed it, Tommy.
Listening. Yeah, the thing that amazes me is how long the careers were. I don't think you're going to see that going forward. Amazing. And such important positions that, really were important in forming professional wrestling as it is today. So with that said, thank you for joining us here on Wrestling Rewind's Wrestling Archives. And please join us back every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on the Monty and the Pharaohs YouTube, as we will be on every week. And for my co-host, the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo, Angel Amoroso, the Virgin Princess Angel, saying thanks for joining us, and have a great night and a great life. Good night.